You know, this year we've seen some new champions come into the fold, and if you took a look at the landscape compared to a couple years ago, it's a lot different now. A lot of new champions have come into the fold. So today's video, I wanted to be going over my predictions for each UFC champion by the end of the year, or even just in a year from now. So literally your guys' thoughts down in the comments below. There are some that I kind of want to just get out of the way because they do seem kind of obvious. But if you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a thumbs up, make sure to subscribe. We're going to get right into this. Starting off with the flyweight division, is anybody going to beat Alexander Pantoja? I don't think so. I think Alexander Pantoja, despite the fact that he is getting up there in age, I believe he's like 35 or something like that, and normally that's when champions start to go downhill, I just don't see anybody beating him. The only person who I think has a chance is Brandon Moreno. Because I think Joshua Van's going to get out-grappled. Brandon Royval, Amir Albazi, Tatsuro Taira might have a bit of a chance. If he gets one more win, if he beats like a Brandon Moreno, or if he beats a Brandon Royval, or even an Amir Albazi, he should get the next title shot after Van. He could potentially pose an interesting threat, but I just don't see any of these guys beating Alexander Pantoja. His striking is improving, his pacing is improving, his overall jiu-jitsu game is so phenomenal with an improving wrestling game. Like, he's so well-rounded, and in the flyweight division, where it's one of the weaker divisions in the UFC, being well-rounded seems to be good enough to get you pretty far. So I think Alexander Pantoja, in a year's time, is going to still be the reigning flyweight champion. Unless he finally gets knocked out. Could you imagine? That'd be kind of insane. But for the bantamweight division, Merab Dvalishvili is the current champion, and I don't see anybody beating him either. You might notice a bit of a theme with dominant champions, because they seem to be making a resurgence into the UFC these days, but I don't see anybody beating Merab Dvalishvili. And you got Corey Sandhagen challenging for the title next month against him, but I don't see Corey beating him. His only shot is to knock out Merab, because Merab is a bit suspect with his durability. He does get hurt when he gets hit. So I could see Corey Sandhagen potentially doing something to him, like maybe landing a flying knee, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Sean O'Malley can beat him, obviously. We saw that rematch. Umar, in my opinion, is the toughest fight, and if Umar doesn't fix his conditioning problems, then he's going to lose. Plain and simple. He will absolutely lose to Merab. And there's nobody else on this list who I think even could stand a chance against him. I think Merab's pacing is just too much. And he's still improving. I saw the improvements in the Sean O'Malley fight. His distance management was on point. And if you're able to manage distance that well against Sean O'Malley, who's a sniper and has the reach advantage, then I just don't think that anybody's going to be able to beat him or even clip him that easily, especially with that pace that he puts on you. So even when fighters get tired, even if he does get clipped, I just don't see anybody hurting him. They're going to be too tired. They're going to be too exhausted. Corey's only chance is to land that flying knee, but I think Merab's going to be expecting that. So I think Merab, a year from now, will probably still be the bantamweight champion. Now, the featherweight division is where this gets a little bit interesting. So this weekend, we have a main event between Gene Silva and Diego Lopez. And the winner of that is probably going to get the next title shot, maybe. I'm not really too sure. I don't think Diego should get another title shot if he wins. I think he should get one more win, and then we can talk about it. But for Gene Silva, if he wins, then yes, I do think we should give him a title shot. And I am favoring Gene Silva to win over Diego Lopez. I think he's more technical, but I can get into that on a different video. But Alexander Volkanovski versus Gene Silva, I believe, will probably be the next fight for him, assuming that Volkanovski isn't fighting Yair Rodriguez or something like that. I actually don't know who Volk's next fight is, to be 100% honest with you. Is he even, scheduled for a fight? I don't think so. So I think Volk's next fight is probably going to be against Gene Silva. And I think Gene Silva beats him. I think a year from now, Gene Silva should be the champ, assuming he doesn't get injured, or assuming that Volkanovski doesn't fight someone else for the time being. So that is going to be my official pick. I do think that Gene Silva, at the end of the year, is going to be, or not at the end of the year, in a year, I should say, is going to be the undisputed UFC featherweight champion. I think he beats Volk, and I think if he beats Volk, he's beating everybody else. I don't think Movsar can beat him. I don't think Diego Lopez is going to beat him. I definitely don't see Yair Rodriguez beating him. Not even Lerone Murphy. I don't see any of these guys beating him, to be 100% honest. So yeah, my official pick is Gene Silva. Moving on to the lightweight division, Ilia Topuria is the champ, and honestly, I don't see any of these guys in the division beating him. I think the guy with the best chance is Arman Tsarukyan, and that is under the assumption that Islam does not come back down to 155 pounds to fight Ilia. If he does, then I think Islam's probably going to beat Ilia, and I think that he would be the lightweight champ. But let's say Islam stays at welterweight. For the sake of this video, I think Ilia Topuria is going to be the champion in a year. It's rumored he's going to be fighting Justin Gaethje next. I think he dusts Justin Gaethje. I think he would absolutely beat Arman Tsarukyan, because Arman slows down in the later rounds. He is a bit of a wild striker, and I believe Ilia will catch Arman and hurt him and drop him. and probably knock him out. Max Holloway, I think, could be an interesting rematch at 155. These guys are going to be a bit fresher, not killing themselves to make weight, but I don't see Holloway winning. He has to be perfect for 25 minutes to beat Ilya, and I don't think that would happen. I think Ilya would catch him at some point, and there's not even a point talking about these other guys. So I think in a year, I think Ilya Topuria will probably still be the lightweight champion. Now, welterweight is where this gets interesting because this kind of rides on, is Islam going to beat JDM? If JDM beats Islam, then I believe he will be the champion in a year. And if Islam beats JDM, then I think Islam will be the champion in a year. It really depends on who wins that fight. And I don't know why, but for some reason, my gut is telling me that JDM's going to win that fight. I believe that Islam's not going to be accustomed to the 170-pound weight class. I think that JDM's takedown defense showed against Belal Muhammad. Now, Islam is a better wrestler than Belal, but even JDM's stance switching is going to give him problems in the boxing department. And Islam hasn't fought a striker like JDM who moves as well as JDM, who switches stances as well as JDM. There's just hasn't been anyone that Islam's fought on that level who's that big and has the cardio to go for 5 rounds. Now, Islam could go 5 rounds too, but how is he going to fare carrying that extra weight? I think he might get JDM down a couple times, but I think that JDM's high guard, the way he kind of like shrimps up as in a way to thwart off takedowns and defend punches, I think is absolutely going to give Islam problems. Now, Islam could potentially catch up with a high kick, maybe as he ducks down if Islam's able to create the distance, but I don't think that Islam's going to finish JDM. I think that if Islam's going to win, it's most likely going to be a decision by controlling JDM on the ground. I don't think he's going to outstrike JDM. But I think that JDM should win that fight. I think a lot of people are overlooking him. And if he does win that fight, I don't see anybody else beating him for the time being, because if Islam Makhachev doesn't beat him, then Sean Brady's definitely not beating him. I don't think Shavkat beats him. His striking defense just is not on that level. He doesn't move his head very well. His boxing defense is very lackluster. Leon Edwards, I believe, would probably just get demolished. I think JDM would put a pressure and pace on him. Leon Edwards would not be able to keep up with him. Usman's too old. Ian Machado Gary could be interesting because I believe he could potentially be faster than JDM and really try to mix up the game. But you saw Carlos Prates put some hands on Ian Machado Gary at the end of their fight. So I think JDM would probably do that as well. But that's an interesting fight. But I'm going to go with the official prediction that JDM will still be the welterweight champion in a year's time. But I don't know. That's a tough one. Moving on to the middleweight division, I don't think anybody's going to beat Khamzat. I think that Khamzat's most likely going to be fighting Nasruddin Imavov next. I think he's going to beat him, and then I don't think he'll fight again for quite a while. Like, Khamzat's not a very active fighter, so it's not going to work out in the division's favor. And Khamzat, even if he was more active, he would still beat every single person in this division. The only person who I think has a chance is Fluffy Hernandez, because he can keep up the cardio and the pace for 5 rounds that Khamzat just has not shown to be able to do. Yes, he went 5 rounds against DDP, but there was no pace or pressure involved there. He took him down and held him on the ground and barely did anything. No fighter in history would ever gas out going at that pace. So I think if Fluffy was able to push the pace, and he is the more technical striker, and he is a very good grappler in his own right, so he could potentially hold his own against Khamzat, but ultimately, I think Khamzat's just too good. I think he's getting much better with his cardio and his pacing, and I think that his new training camp, where he's not overtraining constantly, is going to allow him to recover better and just have more conditioning overall in his fights. So I think in a year, partially due to inactivity, but partially due because Khamzat's just that good, I think he'll still be the middleweight champion in a year's time. Moving on to the light heavyweight division, we got Magomed Ankalaev as the champ. Now, he does have a rematch coming up against Alex Pereira next month, and that should be an interesting fight. I believe they're headlining UFC 320. Now, that fight is really going to come down to how Alex Pereira dictates the pace this time. The last time, he was way too much on the back foot, trying to chop at Magomed Ankalaev's calves because he does not check leg kicks whatsoever. And that seemed to be a tailor-made matchup for Alex Pereira to chop at the legs and then eventually land a left hook. Kind of like what he does to everyone else. But for some reason, it just didn't work. Magomed Ankalaev was very... I kind of want to say hip to the leg kicks, but it didn't seem to faze him as much as it did in the Jan Blachowicz fight. Maybe because he was putting so much pressure on Alex Pereira that Pereira wasn't really able to settle down with his kicks. And he was so worried about the wrestling Pereira to the point that Magomed Ankalaev was kind of able to just have his way with him a bit more on the feet. And it wasn't the most entertaining fight in the world, but I think Magomed Ankalaev beats Pereira in the rematch, partially because Pereira is getting up there in age. He's had a lot of fights in his career, a lot of wear and tear, but his wrestling's only going to get better. And Magomed Ankalaev is not like the world's best wrestler in the world. Like, light heavyweight division is very weak for grapplers, and it's kind of more suited to Alex Pereira. And because he defended all the takedowns on the first fight, is not going to make him more confident and make him more aggressive in the second fight. The only problem is with that, it's a double-edged sword, because if he comes in more aggressive, he could potentially get taken down if he overextends on a punch. But if he's too defensive, Magomed's going to pick him apart and win another decision. But regardless, once he gets past Alex Pereira, assuming that he beats him, I don't think anybody else is going to beat him, to be honest. Like, Yuri Prochazka, I don't think... He's kind of tailor-made for someone like Magomed Ankalaev. Yuri's going to pressure forward, throw a bunch of wild punches with his hands down, and Magomed's going to counter him and hurt him. I don't see Carlos Ulberg beating him. I don't see Khalil beating him. None of these guys here are going to beat him. So I think we're going to have another and still in a year's time. And honestly, I'm going to have to go with the same thing here for the heavyweight division. Tom Aspinall is going to be a long-reigning champ because he's got a fight coming up against Cyril Gane, and I think Tom Aspinall is going to take him down and submit him. And I don't think there's anybody else who can beat him. I think his toughest fight is probably Jailton Almeida. And that's not because Jailton Almeida is a better fighter, but I can see a potential where he holds Tom Aspinall up against the cage and kind of just like wall stalls him his way to a decision. Kind of similar to how Merab did to Jose Aldo or how Mario Bautista did to Jose Aldo. Man, Jose Aldo's really out here catching straights, isn't he? But in all seriousness, yeah, I don't think anybody beats Tom Aspinall. I think he's going to beat Cyril Gane, and I think he's going to knock out everybody else in the heavyweight division. I think he's still going to be the champ in a year's time. So guys, if we take a look at the numbers, I believe there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and stills, and I think there's going to be 1 and new, and that's only because of Volkanovski's age and his potential declining skill. I don't actually think it's because he's not... I don't think it's because he's a bad fighter. I just think that Gene Silva is that next generation fighter with a bunch of knockout power. So let me know you guys' predictions for the champions in a year's time. It just seems like we're kind of in the era right now of a bunch of dominant champs, potentially. Besides maybe JDM, he's like the only one that I'm not very confident in that pick against Islam, because that's such a good fight. I cannot wait to see that. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your guys' opinions down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!